Am I wrong for being mad at my best friend for not standing up for me after her date told me it was my fault for getting essay Throwaway account. Hi Reddit. I really need some help and advice because I am just so lost and heartbroken. I'll just get right into it. This story has a lot of layers, and I want to put a trigger warning on it because SA is mentioned quite a bit. In the middle of May, my sorority had a formal, which was about an hour and a half away from our college. Typically, for formal, the whole sorority goes on a weekend trip, and it is just one huge party at a designated location. My little F21 and myself, F22, are best friends, and we agreed that, because formal last year was so horrible, we would make this weekend about us. So for an entire year, we had this planned out. Well, my best friend broke up with her boyfriend a few weeks before formal, so she brought her guy best friend, M21, as her date. Let's call my best friend Jen and her date Miles. I was really excited to get to meet Miles and get to know him more because he was someone Jen cared a lot about. The first day, things were fine. Everyone was getting along up until about 9:30 p.m. At this point, Jen, Miles, me, and two other friends were in our cabin pre-gaming and having fun. Then, someone asked if I had a boyfriend. I said, no, but I have a really funny and unfortunate dating history. So Miles said to me, okay, tell me one. I'm comfortable telling these stories now because, honestly, they are humorous. So, I begin to tell my go-to story, which I have told so many people because it is just ridiculous. Basically, when I was 16, I dated someone who was 20. He had a kid and didn't tell me, and there was a bunch of messed up stuff that happened after that you just see in movies. I did have sex with him. Some more backstory. Boys and men were very interested in me when I was 16 and 17. When I was also 16, the manager at the restaurant I worked at convinced me to also date him. He was 23. He would tell me things like, if you don't do this, I won't love you, or do this, plug something Actual, this way not like that, and so on. This was very similar to my supposed relationship with the person that was 20. I didn't know how relationships were supposed to be, what love was, or anything like that. I just wanted someone to care about me and love me. Obviously, I don't openly tell people these parts of my stories. I only share the funny bits. Anyways, I started telling the first story. All I said was, so when I was 16, I accidentally dated someone who had a kid, and he was 20. Miles stops me and was like, why did you decide to date someone that was so much older than you? I explained to him that there were a lot of manipulative components. He proceeded to tell me, yeah, but that choice was yours. You didn't have to talk to him. You could have said no if you knew it was wrong. That's your fault. I sat in silence for a minute because I have never gotten a response like that. Jen, who was sitting next to him, jumped up and went to stand next to me and said, hey, that wasn't nice. I proceeded to tell Miles it wasn't my fault. I was a minor. I couldn't have given consent to anything. They should have known better as to not get with the child. Miles continued to tell me that it was my choice in the end and that I should have known better. Jen just stood there in silence the whole time. Obviously, I was so hurt by these comments, and so I fought back, trying to stand up for myself. One of my friends pulled Jen outside as she was getting overwhelmed. While she was outside, Miles said something to me that I will never forget. Note: at this point, he was well aware of the SE Zool advances, but not the extent. I asked him why he thought all this was on me. He responded with, the emotional intelligence of a 16-year-old woman is the same as a 20-year-old man because women mature faster. The other person in the room, who was a male, stopped him, saying that is out of pocket. First of all, a 16-year-old is not a woman, that is a girl. What you just said doesn't make logical sense. This went on for a while longer, and it got pretty heated. Miles said things to me that I will never be able to unhear. All those years of healing and forgiving were gone while the hurt, pain, trauma were all rehashed. I was a wreck on the inside. All that time and work I spent telling myself it wasn't my fault and working through things in therapy were gone. My friend brought Jin back into the cabin and broke up the argument, but all that was left of me were broken pieces. I silently went upstairs and cried. For the rest of the night, Miles was actively trying to separate me and Jen let him, even though we planned this weekend for us for a whole year. Eventually, I left the big party cabin that we were all at. I told Jen I was going. She asked if I wanted her to come, and I said no. She was having fun, and I didn't want to ruin that. She bailed on me for the rest of the things we had planned for the night. I even texted her about some of the plans, and when she finally answered, she said she was playing bags with Miles and that she couldn't come back to meet me. So, I spent the night alone in the cabin for a while and cried. The rest of formal wasn't great, and there was a lot of tension between Miles and I. There were other small things that happened, like Jen getting mad that Miles ditched her. Fast forward to a week later, I tried to talk to Jen about how upset I was. She was extremely dismissive and said he didn't know what he was saying. This hurt worse because she acknowledged how horrible what he said was, but didn't say anything to him and continued to spend time with him. This is my best friend. It feels selfish to say, but I wanted her to stand up for me, support me, or literally do anything to show up for me. A few days later, I tried to express how mad I was at Miles to Jen, and she texted me back saying how upset and disappointed she was that I was mad at him. We talked it out the next day and things were fine. Fast forward another week, Jen and I are subleasing the same place together for the summer. After talking to my therapist, I realized I was also mad at Jen, so I wrote out a whole thing of what I wanted to say to her. It was 4 pages long. When I found a good time, I sat Jen down and read her what I wrote. I thought I was going to be sick. I was so nervous and anxious. I cried reading the whole thing. I told her exactly how I felt and that I was so worried about being upset because I didn't want to lose her. We had a very long talk where she apologized. She told me she was mad at him and that she has wanted to talk to him for a while, but didn't know if she was overstepping a boundary of mine, so she didn't. I told her I did want her to say something and she agreed. In the end, we agreed that she would talk to Miles first and then I would confront Miles after because I had been wanting to talk to him about how deeply he hurt me. I said, let's put a time limit on this because I don't want it to be too late, and Jen said that was a good idea. We agreed that these conversations were to be had in a matter of 2 weeks. Fast forward 2.5 weeks. She hasn't said anything at all. It feels like she just doesn't care and I'm really hurt by this. I don't know what to do. I'm devastated. Am I wrong for being mad at her for not standing up for me?